Hey, what's going on YouTube? Welcome to another League of Legends guide. Today, we're going to learn how to play the extremely tanky top laner, Sion.
Rest is for the living.
Sion becomes a very tanky champion with the item build we go for and the fact that he gets stacking health from his W. This makes him one of those champions who actually have infinite scaling. He's got a great initiation from his ultimate, and he's a very strong laner. His abilities have rather high base damage, and when we are maxing our E, we're able to put out a lot of poke damage even though we are a melee champion. Then, of course, there is the fact that he's a threat even after he dies. Even if you can actually bring down the Sion, he can still come back to life with his passive and still rip through your team. Now, although he is a rather strong top laner, there's still a bunch of cons. Basically, all of his skills, beside his shield, are dodgeable. In a meta where there seems to be a lot of Rivens and Echoes, these very mobile champions, they are able to deal with all of your skills rather easily. You then have rather high mana costs, so you're not always able to spam your abilities. Then of course there is your massive hitbox. Sion is basically the size of a transport truck, at least width-wise. Trying to dodge certain skills will be insanely hard on Sion, considering how massive a champion you are. Without minions, you're then really easily kited, and your Q is also easily interrupted. He's a really fun champion, but there's a reason he's not considered God or tier 1. For our Masteries, I like to go 12 Ferocity and 18 Resolve, grabbing Grasp of the Undying as our Keystone Mastery. You already have stacking health from your W, and you are a very tanky champion, so Grasp will just add some really nice sustain in that lane. If you thought Sion was already hard enough to bring down, we'll add in some nice healing from Grasp, and he's really hard to push out of lane. For our runes, I like to go Armor Penetration Reds, Armor Yellows, Magic Resist Blues, and Attack Damage Quints. You will get rather tanky from all of that Armor and Magic Resist, but do some nice damage from the Armor Penetration and Attack Damage. When we are going for our E plus Q harassment combo, the Armor Penetration and Attack Damage are very effective and can actually do massive chunks of damage on the enemy champion. For our summoners, Flash is the first one we grab. It's great to escape ganks, finish off enemies running away, or to engage from a distance when you don't have your ultimate available. As for our secondary summoner, Teleport is definitely my favorite. This will allow you to split push for large portions of the game and still make it to teamfights and objectives quickly. If however you are in a really hard matchup top lane and you're really fearing for your life, Exhaust would be a great pickup. This will make dueling the enemy top laner insanely easy when you actually have Exhaust available. The downside of course is that you won't have Teleport and getting into fights will take time even if you do have your ultimate up. So now let's look at our abilities, starting with our passive, Glory in Death. So when you die, this is basically what brings you back to life at 100% maximum health, but you start losing some every tick. You will be able to freely move and use your basic attacks during this time, and you do gain 100% lifesteal and set at 1.75 attack speed. You then start dealing an extra 10% of the target's maximum health as bonus on hit damage. This means if you are allowed to attack during this phase for a while, you will do devastating damage. All of your abilities will then also be replaced by Death Surge, and when you activate this, you gain 50% bonus movement speed, which decays over 1.5 seconds. This will just be useful for getting to those squishy targets, so you can quickly bring them down. Keep in mind you can take towers, inhibitors, or even the Nexus in this form if they are low enough. All in all, it is a rather strong passive that allows you to deal damage even after death. Now let's look at your Q, Decimating Smash. So for the first cast, Sion will channel for up to 2 seconds in the direction of the mouse cursor. This will increase Decimating Smash's damage over the duration and will go up to 300%. Its range then goes up over the next second. If it is interrupted, Decimating Smash goes on a reduced 2-second cooldown. On the second cast, Sion deals physical damage to all enemies in the target area, increasing by 33.3% against monsters and 66.7% against champions. If this skill was charged for less than 1 second, Sion will slow all enemies in the area by 50% for 0.25 seconds. If it was charged for at least 1 second, however, he will knock up all enemies hit for between 1.25 and 2.25 seconds based on how long it was channeled. So this of course is part of your EQ combo. Your E will slow, which will make Q a lot easier to land, and you will be able to charge it for a longer duration. When you are using it, you'll pretty much want to make sure you charge it as long as possible, without the enemy of course leaving the zone, so you actually hit them and get a higher AD ratio. This is great to wave clear, disrupt channeled abilities like Malzahar's ultimate, and is very powerful in teamfights. Since this can theoretically stun an entire team if they are caught in that zone, one well-placed Q can easily win you the game. Next is our W, Soul Furnace. The passive part here is what allows Sion to scale infinitely. You get 2 bonus health whenever you kill an enemy, and 10 when you do a larger enemy or enemy champion. This is also your shield ability. When you activate it, you shield yourself for up to 6 seconds, and after 3, you can reactivate it to detonate. When activated, this will of course detonate and deal magic damage to the enemies around Sion. Both the shield strength and damage are based off of maximum health, so it is a very solid ability. The shield itself will work great with your passive, as you should have a high amount of health as long as you are farming sufficiently. Then of course the detonation is based off the target's maximum health, so it can even deal with tankier targets. When you are trading, you're going to want to make sure your shield doesn't actually get brought down, because you still want to detonate it for that extra damage. If the champion does get through your actual shield, there will be no detonation. Use it towards the end of a trade, so you will still have that shield up, at least a little bit of it, and then you can activate it and do more damage. Now for your E, Roar of the Slayer. So when you use this ability, you basically shout in a direction and slow the first enemy hit and reduce their armor by 20% for up to 2.5 seconds. Now you can also use this on a minion or non-epic monster. They will be knocked back and deal 30% increased damage to all the enemies they pass through and slow them by the same amount for 2.5 seconds. So this ability is your primary harass and allows you to wave clear as well. Anytime the enemy moves towards minions, you can shove a minion in their face with this ability and then follow up with a Q. When you are, however, going in for an all-in kill, you will want to land the E on the actual champion as opposed to a minion. This is because you will get that 20% armor reduction on that target, and they will be easier to bring down. If you shove a minion into them, there is no armor reduction. So now let's look at our R, Unstoppable Onslaught. When activated, Sion charges in the target direction for up to 8 seconds, and he's also immune to crowd control. Your trajectory will update itself towards the cursor over the duration, but the capacity to change directions is reduced. So when you do the second cast, you will halt your charge and slam the ground after a brief delay. If you do collide with an enemy champion, structure, terrain, or charge for the full duration, you will automatically slam the ground. The minimum physical damage here will be between 150 and 450 plus 40% bonus AD. Damaged enemies are also slowed for 3 seconds, and those directly hit will be pulled to him as well and be stunned for 0.75 seconds. The damage and stun duration will then increase over the charge's first few seconds and cap at 200% and 1.75 seconds respectively. If you're using this to go for an all-in, you'll want to use it right after you apply your E, so they will have reduced armor and they will already be slowed. It will be much easier to land. Other than that, it's also great to use after a teleport. Try and teleport behind the enemy team and then use your ultimate to close that gap and do some devastating damage. Be careful of stuff like Anivia's Wall and Trundle's Pillar. If you do collide with these, the charge will stop. They are pretty damn good counters. So for our skill order, this is what we go for. We max our R first, then our E, followed by Q, and then finally W. You can see that this is only used 4.6% of the time. Most people do max Q, but Q is inferior to an E max. Maxing E first will make you a big time lane bully, as you'll be able to keep shoving minions into the enemy laner's face, and it's going to be really hard for them to deal with. You can then follow up with a Q for even more damage. So Sion has 2 main combos, so let's take a quick look at those. Our first one here is our main harassing combo. To pull off this combo, we first shove a minion into the enemy laner with our E, Roar of the Slayer, since they will take an extra 30% damage this way. They will also be slowed, so we can move in and charge up our Q, Decimating Smash, for its increased damage, as we will take a huge chunk out of the enemy champion's health with a charged Q. Very simple to pull off, and something you will be doing over and over and over in the lane phase. So our next combo is our all-in damage combo. First, we will start off by hitting the enemy laner with our E, Roar of the Slayer. Make sure you do not use a minion, because we want to get that 20% reduced armor on the target. We can then immediately follow up with our Unstoppable Onslaught and activate our W, Soul Furnace, while we are charging in. After you end your charge, you will do a bunch of damage, and then you can work on landing your Q, Decimating Smash, and activate your W, Soul Furnace, to explode your shield. Then you're just going to start auto-attacking if the enemy champion is still alive, and use your abilities as they come off cooldown. In the early game, you're going to want to focus on getting as many last hits as you can, and you'll also want to do your harassment combo. Make sure you ward around 3 minutes or so when the jungler should be looking to gank, so you know you're safe in lane. You are a very gankable champion, especially pre-6, so make sure you're being careful at the same time. Remember, farming is extremely important. You do get stacking health from your W, so make sure you're getting all of those last hits. Then, when you are finally level 6, you can start trying to go for your all-in combo that we just covered on the combo page. In the mid-game, make sure you're helping buy pinks so you can control some of the vision on the map. Look for opportunities to flank the enemy team with your teleport and ultimate combo. This can easily get you to the enemy's backline, where you can be absolutely devastating. Then make sure you are trying to keep the side lanes pushed, and if you did buy a ZZ Rot portal, make sure you're dropping that under your tower. Lastly, make sure you're keeping up that farm. It's all about getting those soul furnace stacks so you are an incredibly tanky champion and so hard to bring down. As long as you've been getting some decent farm, in the late game, you're going to become an unstoppable force. You'll have massive health from your items and your soul furnace, you'll have high cooldown reduction, and very tanky stats. Your shield will still be dishing out a lot of solid damage, as it is based on the percentage of maximum health. You also have a ton of crowd control, and the cooldown reduction needed to use your E and Q rather often. Keep looking for opportunities to engage into the enemy team with either your teleport or your ultimate. Lastly, make sure you're taking advantage of your insanely strong tower dives. You have very tanky stats, and you can tank them for a very long duration. You of course have a shield in your kit to help you accomplish this goal. So let's quickly look at a couple of our hardest matchups. Coming in at number 1 is Irelia. Against her, you're going to need to rush a Frozen Heart since she's a very strong auto-attacking champion. Against her, make sure you're doing your harassment combo over and over again, but don't get too close where she can stun you. Then there is Wukong, yet another very hard matchup. Yet again, you'll want to rush a Frozen Heart and poke him down with the same combination you're using against Irelia. You then may also want to start with a Doran Shield to actually deal with the damage he puts out. Lastly, there is Riven, another champion you'll probably want to start a Doran Shield against. She's able to shield and dodge most of your skills and is insanely hard for you even to harass. Yet again, you're going to need to get an early Frozen Heart and some ninja tabbies and avoid her Q at all costs. Poke her down as much as possible, but considering she has so much mobility, this may be an issue. Keep in mind that there are other hard matchups, but these ones here are the 3 ones that I usually struggle against. So for our last page, let's cover that item build. We're going to want to start with either a Corrupting Potion and a Warding Totem, or a Doran Shield and a Health Potion. Usually you'll want to go for that Corrupting Potion, but if you are against one of the hard matchups I just talked about, or a couple other champions, you're going to need that Doran Shield. So, for our core build, we have the Sunfire Cape, Spirit Visage, and Boots of Swiftness. Sunfire Cape is a great way to add just a little bit more damage, push lanes, and remain tanky. Spirit Visage is of course also the best magic resist item, and you may need to rush this against things like Swain top lane. Sion is then a very kiteable champion, and he really relies on movement speed, so I almost always take the Boots of Swiftness. So for our item pool, the first one here is the Frozen Heart, and I even put it in a little gold border, because sometimes you're going to need to get this one first. I just finished talking about how important it is against things like Irelia, so this is a very important item a lot of the time, and it's usually honestly in my full build anyways. So another decent option is the Iceborne Gauntlet. This gives you some much needed cooldown reduction, but it can add some nice damage as well. Then there is the ZZ Rot Portal, and this is definitely one of my favorite items on Sion, as it will give you all those last hits you need and push lanes. If you're roaming around a lot with your teleport and your ultimate, at least you will have the ZZ Rot Portal to help push that lane back. This is actually an item some Sions get first. That is not something I like to do, but I do like it in my core build, but it is viable to go first as well. But anyways, then we have some great armor options in both the Randuin's and the Thornmail. Randuin's is fantastic against champions with high crit like Yasuo, and Thornmail of course is a great pickup against heavy AD teams. Then we move into our best MR option, the Banshee's Veil. It's great for blocking some spells, and this can really help you not get kited as hard. So what's scarier than a Sion that can come back once? Well, it would be a Sion that can come back twice, the Guardian Angel. This is a fantastic late game pickup when you are going for those team fights which could make or break the game. If we're needing to go for pure HP, of course the Warmogs is a great item as well, as is the Titanic Hydra, but this one also adds some nice AoE damage. If we're worried about some burst in the mid and early game, we could get an early Sterax to help negate that burst. So for the first final build here, we are focusing on split pushing and having both enough armor and magic resist as we were against a balanced team. So we of course take our core, add a ZZ Rot Portal for some nice split push, and then add a Frozen Heart and a Banshee's Veil. You will be insanely tanky and next to impossible to bring down as long as you do have some nice stacks from your W. For our second build, we were against a full AD team, so we actually didn't even take the Spirit Visage. We instead have the Sunfire Cape, Boots of Swiftness, ZZ Rot Portal, Frozen Heart, Randuins, and a Thornmail. Good luck bringing us down, you AD sons of bitches. Alright, so that covers everything I've got for top lane Sion. If you guys did enjoy the video, please make sure you like and subscribe, and if you are interested in skin giveaways, make sure you head over to our Twitter at egaming_TV to enter those giveaways. Other than that, thank you guys a ton for watching, and I will see you guys in the next video. Peace!